everybody. Hello. Well, actually, I think my thing running? My live thing running? Yeah, I think so. All right. So hold on. I'm gonna make sure I see the proper chat though. Hello, everybody. Casey, Brad, Arnon, of course. We're gonna start. Mama has to be here. I know. We're gonna start right away. There's not a lot of surprises for us. We said how we expect Leo, hello. Thomas, of course. How could I not notice? My apologies. So, I mean, obviously, let's tackle the obvious. We've gapped up a little bit. Not that surprising. What is actually surprising is the fact of the matter that we even have a tiny little gap on the continuous contract, which is the one for the futures, which is something very abnormal. We usually do not have any gaps there, so we have a tiny little gap right there to close even on that contract, no, on that chart, which most people are not familiar with, but that even plays more of a confidence booster to know that we're headed soon to move downwards to close the gap as well. But we're gonna ignore this chart for the time being. Let's focus on is the live or what's going on? Is my thing working? Because it just went no, okay, it's working. Yeah, it's just the YouTube doing stupid stuff, as always. So let's look at the regular chart. Let's see what it gives us in terms of momentum. Are we all that surprised that we've got this? Plus, I did kind of say we're gonna have some upwards momentum potentially, bring us all the way back to the 55 area. If those who remember, we said that potentially now is gonna be our ceiling. We are no longer that much afraid about that 55.84, at least not. No, doesn't matter. That works. We still think that, well, right now for the short-term resistance-wise, it's not going to play a big role. What we do have is, well, let's start looking at the 5 minutes. The 5 minutes is actually more interesting than the one. We know the 1 minute, most of it is going to just flip over back and forth. You really need to be able to judge what you're seeing on the 1 minute based upon the overall trend. It's easier to see the 5 minutes than in that context, if you really care about it, is look at the 1 minute. So we're going to focus, the larger time frames closer to the 1 hour are the ones that really matter to us. We're going to focus on them. Right now, this is very bearish, all in all. Yes, I mean, we are, like, so this is potentially going to get amplified. Like we said, it's going to maybe bring us to that 54.87 here while we're testing convergence, divergence back and forth. But all in all, we're starting to see that relatively soon we're going to start moving to the downside, giving us more of a correction. Now, what we've done today so far, just kind of how we've opened up, potentially leading it downwards onto the top of the gap, or maybe actually into the gap. But let's confirm that on the 30 minutes, which is easier to see. 30 minutes really confirms what we are suspicious of, as I was saying, potentially bringing the market back to 55.01, 55.06, give or take, because yes, we still do have that bullish momentum looking this way. We still potentially will squeeze that outwards by moving and doing this, testing this level, and only then, of course, after retest, only then bring us down to the downside, doing exactly what we just said. So we kind of have confirmation from 30 minutes with regards to that. Let's just clean it up for quick. Come on, what is that? It doesn't want to go away. All right. We were 30 minutes, so let's go 45. Let's see what 45 minutes tells us. 45 is actually still rather bullish. It is a little bit confusing, jumping back to 30, 45. No, not so weird. The 35 is more of a zoomed in, amplified effect, sort of looking version of the 45 minutes. This is just a smaller version, but still very indicative of the actual move. 1 hour doesn't change. If we're going to look sort of the adjustment between the 30 minutes and the 1 hour, they are not so different. It is actually still very hard to discern. The market itself looks very confused. And that's why we're probably getting more or less this sort of sideways pattern building up into this, meaning it's very hard to discern whether this is fully bullish and gonna commit, or are we actually in a bearish trend and we're gonna reverse. So for that, again, the larger time frame, I would probably say that in the context of the 4 hours, it seems like it's going to be more bullish, because if the 4 hour sort of in terms of this duration, we're still going to have some bullish momentum, which well, seems to be very ripe to go, because we went too cold for too long and will probably overturn. Good buying opportunity. The bots recognize it, the technical people. In other words, there's a good reason to start buying here. I'm not the only one person who can see this. So inevitably, we're going to probably see some buying. That some buying might bring us back. As we said, this is part of that move of the 5501. In fact, break above it, that potentially can be sort of, if you can see, have a similar upwards, this climbing trend, bringing us all the way to the 55555555. Potentially, yes, it's still within the range that could get tested based upon the 4 hours and then the 1 hour, right? So these kind of imply a potential movement to the upside. But if I want to look and be more certain, as we know, we're going to go to the daily. The daily will give us a better idea of what is really going on. Let's look at the daily. The daily is actually more bearish than bullish in a way. Yes, we right now the K is dominant, the green line, in other words, showing us that yes, we are having some form of a relief on the bearish side, because we were basically going bearish all along. It does give us some form of a relief, but I will remind you, the 1 day pattern, my 1 day chart usually tests for quite a bit. Just these processes take a little while. We can see roughly around the 2-week mark, give or take, when we actually go into the swing of things, if it actually gets amplified, if we gather the momentum and start trending. Really what it is, the real thing is that it starts trending, and that really what's going on. So it can very much be, and if we're going to start trending, this is just a mere correction, short-term relief, and otherwise we're going to continue to the downside, further closing the gap that we thought about from before. I think those were the levels. The turquoise lines is the gap. The gap we're talking about, the next one in line, if I'm not mistaken. So that actually gives us potentially just this amplification of the bearish momentum, can easily bring us down to that 53.76 area, all the way to 53.44. 53.76, I repeat, 0.98 to be really precise, although I remember making sure these are precise, but and 53.44.95. Those are the ranges of the lower gap that we have. It appears to be somewhere around here, and I do think that this bearish momentum on the daily time frame actually is enough to bring us down to that area and close, potentially start closing that gap. Subsequently, whatever the smaller time frames will give us, it means we can actually, it's not that linear or straightforward. Of course, we can hit off, test inwards, test inside, and only then continue down or up. So of course we'll know by then. But first we have to drop and see this price action to come through, which also means, if we're going to do this, means we're going to have some upwards momentum to correct all of that, which this is not going to be out of the realm of possibility, correcting a bit to the upside. What we really are looking for is that weekly, what we were talking about all of last week, how we're going to see these not just converge, we're going to see them converge and start pointing to the downside, which I told you guys. So for the time being, until this weekly, right, stochastic RSI makes its way to the downside into oversold territory again, it's going to be a lighter form of downwards price action. It's going to be mitigated downwards price action. In other words, it's going to take some time, but when we do hit oversold territory, it's going to get amplified, and subsequently we're going to see a lot more downwards price action, giving us the completion of this and the gap that we just looked at. And even if we're going to have some corrective movement out from the gap, we will slide down into it and slide through potentially something akin to this. At least this is what this implies, that we're going to have some bullish, but overall it's going to be overshadowed by the very bearish momentum. That is that. Let's clean it up a little bit just so we can see stuff. I mean, we can go over beyond. We can go to the monthly, and the monthly didn't change probably much, even if at all. Maybe just the adjustment of the stochastic that we thought. Yeah, not even that. It just slightly became more bearish. Not really a change. So this gonna require this candlestick to stay as is and maybe get amplified even further throughout the following days, and only then we'll be able to determine whether this is how it's going to look like. I do think this candlestick will look a lot more red and a lot more will bring us lower in price action, significantly lower until it's going to get locked. That is it. I think we've kind of closed it off, because if this didn't change, we definitely have no reason to look at the 3 months, which we know is the same thing. Nothing really has been readjusted on it, right? We're still having the same pattern, waiting for the 3 months to close in 21 days. Then, depending on how this candlestick will look like, the more severe this transition will look worse, of course. The same goes to this. This will also converge the same way we were seeing on the weekly, right? Just like this. Basically, this we will see right here on the 6 months, bringing us to the downside, slightly mitigating, but overall bringing us lower into oversold territory. That's it. Now, time for questions. I think we can clean all that stuff up. Let's do that. Let's watch the price action and answer some questions if we have any. And clean. All right. Let's get started. Hello, mama. Hello. I knew mom would be here. And again, connect to, or just me. Well, mama, am I on Palantir today? Hopefully Greg covers it. What, Palantir? Nothing changed. I said before, look, right now what you are saying, you're mostly jumping up and down on top of that 30.07. It actually does make a lot of sense to me that a lot of these small caps or just assets that are good, all in all, having some upwards pressure really. And why it's good, look, if we say the market is going to go over through an overall very large dip, very deep correction, you have to ask yourself, how low will the overall market go in terms of how the assets will look like, the individual assets. The individual assets potentially would have looked a lot worse, because we did have quite a low just recently, which started worrying me. If the correction will start simultaneously with these low lows, that means we're actually going to have extreme lows, just insanely extreme lows on the individual assets, given the fact that some of them had run up. For example, Palantir, that actually all it does, it allows it to be normal prices in case of a correction. To be more precise, for example, when in the community I talk about sort of the reasons to why I think particular levels will be met, especially when with regards to the S&P, you ask yourself, does that mean we're going to get the same levels on individual assets that correlate with that particular low? That's not what I'm saying, actually. What I am saying that, and I've been saying it all along, potentially the assets will not dip as low as back then. But yes, we will see lows that are very extreme compared to where we are right now, if that makes any sense. I hope that the stream is working well, because it's doing some weird things on me here for some reason. Like, I'm really getting some weird delays. I think it might be my tablet being connected or something. I don't know. I'm trying to. Yeah, no, it's still. I hope the stream is working smoothly. Let me know if not. Glitch? Is it glitching? Froze 3 times. I see. So I think I'm gonna have to finish this and restart. I see. Ladies and gents, we have to adjourn this. I see. I see. Thank you for letting me know.